The Chicago Cubs and the Milwaukee Brewers will do battle this weekend from the friendly confines for the battle of first place in the NL Central. The White Sox find better ways to lose. LeBron James and his mates are finally going home on summer vacation, while the New York Knicks will move on to round number 2. The Stanley Cup Playoffs are hot and underway, and we'll have some sports media news that will be shocking to some people and some revelation to others. That and a whole lot more as the Second City Sports, the first Friday edition for the month of May, starts right now. Welcome to the first Friday edition of Second City Sports for the month of May. We're live in the living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago, along with Miss Lakeem McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at CK80. Once again, it's CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X, and Keenan McGee on the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are located at War Media Podcast. Excuse me. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including that iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Once again, that's at WARR Media, War Media. And we'd like to thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions from the world of sports, entertainment, and more during our 2-hour extravaganza, you can always hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I've given Lakina full powers to give you fools to be a be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, we must remind you can catch Sports Zone Chicago live in their living color, not now, but right now on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, please tap on that sports folder and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. For those of you that don't not have a Roku television, but you have some handheld devices laying around, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your Chromebook, or your PC, or your Android, just head up to Google Play Store, download the Roku TV app, and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So, no more excuses. Celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere.
And you know we will provide.
And we'll be providing you with some of the best here in the first Friday of May here on Second City Sports. Of course, we will talk some Bulls and NBA playoffs with a new friend to the program, Julia Poe from the Chicago Tribune. She's the Chicago Tribune, I should say. She's a Bulls beat reporter there. Of course, we got some sports media news to talk about as well. We'll do the hockey as we have a couple of Game 7s coming up this weekend. But first, Sid, we're going to get into some baseball. These are kind of our baseball kind of power hour, if you will. The Cubs have a big series coming up. I know it's kind of weird to say you're only about 2 months in, but it is a big series as they face the Milwaukee Brewers, who are a half game in front of them. They did have a split series in their 4th game against the Mets. You can probably tell that maybe yesterday, after losing 7-6 and 11, they probably should have won that game. But look, Shotei Imanaga won National League Pitcher of the Month honors for the month of April. He has a leading 0.87 ERA. His WAR is very good as well. So there has been some bright spots for the Cubs. Look, the fact that they're 19-13, and despite having not only a tough schedule but also with all the injuries they've had, good news. It looks like Seiya is like, he's doing batting practice, so he might be back for this Brewer series. Justin Steele, there's rumors that he might, come back and pitch on Monday if his bullpen session goes well. So considering where, the Cubs and where they were at, I think if you're a Cubs fan, you should be glad they're in a good spot.
Yes, and we all know that during the 6-month long regular season, injuries are going to become a factor. It's the teams that survive it the most who has the best role players. So those are the teams that win divisions, clinch playoff spots, and perhaps participate in the playoffs. But for this Cubs team, you got to give it up to players like P. Crow Armstrong, Mike Tauchman, and like you mentioned, Shota Imanaga, who won in a rookie pitcher of the month with a 5-0 record. Let's not forget, too, Jordan Wicks and Javier Assad with the entries to that starting rotation, as you mentioned, with Justin Steele. Don't forget about Cal Hendricks, who's also on the injury list as well. Jordan Wicks and Javier Assad, who's going to pitch this weekend in this Brewers series. Those guys have held up the fort, and they've been more than a competitive. They've been a first-place team. And also to give new manager Craig Counsell credit for keeping these guys motivated, and he's not afraid to pull the plug if you're not doing the job. So go ask those folks in the bullpen, which we'll get to, I'm sure, deeper in just a moment. But you need a manager that holds players accountable, and you gotta have players that play in your style and also respect you at the same time.
This is Second C Sports on Sports on Chicago. Keenan McGee, Sneak Brown with you. Yeah, I mean, the bullpen, just imagine the bullpen was actually somewhat decent. I mean, the Cubs probably have one of the better records in baseball right now. But look, I mean, let's talk about this Brewers series, though, for a second here. Of course, we know that this is Craig Counsell's former team. He's not going to make a big deal about it. That's not never been his style. So he's just going to take it one game at a time in this series. Now, the Brewers have shown a little bit of, look, they were hot early. They kind of, fizzled out a little bit. They had a tough week this week. So, I think they're going to want to kind of redeem themselves as well. So they got like a lot of young, talent on that Brewers squad. Of course, still got Christian Yelich. He's still there. So, but for me, I think if you're the Cubs, if you want to try to win 2 out of 3, I think that would probably be ideal. I mean, sweeping might be kind of considering the injuries, it might be too much to ask and a tall task. But if they can get 2 out of 3, perhaps get a half a game. They have an even tougher series. We'll talk about that, probably over the weekend. But yeah, I think if you're the Cubs, I think you'll just try to take it one game at a time. Don't look ahead. Try to kind of jump on the Brewers pitching early because they have been a little bit stagnant. You can probably win maybe a couple of these games at Wrigley, and that helps too.
It all starts with the Cubs, and I was going to ask you what's your concern that you have with this Cubs team right now. The one major concern outside of the bullpen that I have with this team is their defense. I know we talked about Dansby Swanson, with his bat struggling coming out of the game for the season. It looks like he's starting to turn around, but it looks like his defense is still lagging far behind. I'll be paying attention to the Cubs defense, in particular Dansby Swanson this weekend. Now the starting pitching, I think, is going to hold up, but we still got to worry about that bullpen a little bit. So, like you said, Milwaukee, they don't have any big thumpers in their lineup. They still have a bunch of guys that know how to hit in certain situations, and the Cubs may have to take a page out of their playbook to beat them at their own game as well.
Yeah, Hayden Wisniewski gets to start in about an hour from now against Joe Ross on Saturday. Now, no show to this series, which I'm sure is a bummer for some Cubs fans. They got Tobias Myers against Jameson Taillon, who's actually been okay. I know his last start, against the Mets, that was a little bit, but yeah, he's been okay. I mean, Javier Assad's been really good. He goes to the bump on Sunday. Against Bryce Wilson, so that should help the Cubs a little bit if they can kind of perhaps try to get 6 or 7 good innings, limit the Brewers' offense, and look, Dansby Swanson. I'm not too concerned. I know he was kind of like this early on in Atlanta. He kind of got it together, so it may just be a mental block here as well. Of course, Bellinger's still out, so I think that might not be helping him a bit with that either. So I think if you're the Cubs, try to see if maybe you can have guys. Christopher Morel had a nice series with the Mets, so kind of have all that kind of intertwined. Perhaps maybe Ian Happ had made a couple of big plays, in that series. To have the Cubs hold on to a 1-0 win on Wednesday. So I think for me, if you're the Cubs, you gotta be feeling good of where you're at right now. Look, I mean, I'm sure they'll figure out the bullpen. I mean, that's still going to be it's going to give Cubs fans ulcers, I think, throughout the season unless they make some big changes. Hopefully, they can kind of figure it out. Hopefully, Azalea can kind of whatever it is that if it's his head or whatever. But yeah, hopefully, Kyle Henderson get himself together as well. Maybe get him out the bullpen. So yeah, I think if the fact that we're in May, and I think hopefully we can kind of turn things around for the Cubs and just kind of take this one series at a time and perhaps maybe try to kind of take advantage of the Brewers.
Oh, you mentioned the 1-0 win on Wednesday against the Mets. I want to get your thoughts on the play at the end of the game. Of course, Jack McNeil, the second baseman of the New York Mets, he flew out to Ian Happ, which was the second out. The Mets, I believe, had runners on second and third. And of course, Pete Alonso tacked up and tried to score the game-tying run. He was thrown out at home plate. Of course, Miguel Amaya, who was the catcher for the Cubs, he had his left foot on home plate. And according to Mets manager Carlos Mendoza, I don't know if you caught the audio of him yelling and ranting after the game. I saw it on SNY, the TV station for the Mets, and they had to beat that out and go away from it right away. You know why, if you saw it. But Ian Happ threw the ball to Nick Madrigal, the third baseman for the Cubs, and then Madrigal threw it to home plate, in which Pete Alonso was tagged out. Now, it was Rule 713 that says that you couldn't block the plate. And I thought that Cliff Floyd, who also works for MLB Network, he's one of the Cubs studio TV analysts, I thought he broke it down perfectly from Amaya's standpoint. Amaya did not block the plate. Pete Alonso still had a clear path, base lane to home plate. And of course, Amaya attacked him out. But I watched the SNY post-game show, and Todd Zeile, who's a former MLB player, a former catcher in his early days with the St. Louis Cardinals, and for those of you older than us, he put on the catcher's mitt, and he explained, he did a great job explaining. He thought that Amaya did block the plate slightly because the rule is you cannot have your foot on home plate if you don't have the ball in your hands. And that's what we saw on replay. And that's what Mets manager Carlos Mendoza was arguing at the end of the game. But Lakina, considering what the umpires went through once the Mets challenged the call, I thought in the beginning the umps got a run. I thought Pete Alonso's left hand got in there, but after seeing a bunch of replays, his hand really disappeared after he slid across home plate. I thought the umps got it right after the replay.
They also, of course, the Mets challenged the ruling, and of course, they even, in New York, they even said, yeah, he was out. So, you couldn't really tell where his hand was, so he kind of disappeared like underneath Amaya's, I guess, glove or his knee.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably why you didn't see it initially. But yeah, every angle that I saw, and the SNY angle, of course, if we go through our buddy ABC7 New York's Ryan Field, he actually tried to delete it, but someone was able to screenshot, try to post a little angle where you didn't really see where Pete Alonso's hand was. So, I think that angle was actually better than the Marquee Network's angle, which I saw as well. So, yeah, they did get the tag. They did get the win and hang on. So, that's it for that. So, yeah, that was interesting to develop here. But look, Shota has been amazing, for the Cubs. He's kind of kept that pitching afloat. He hasn't given up maybe like one earned run. And being told about 40 something strikeout or something like that. Like I said, his ERA is a major league leading 0.87. Of course, won a pitcher of the month honors from the National League. So I think if it's a little early to do the whole rookie of the year thing yet. They showed us. Probably should definitely be in a team photo. So yeah, I think for me, if he can keep it going, I think he can definitely kind of maybe lead the Cubs in the pitching, perhaps maybe get a little help, especially when Steele comes back. So they can be kind of like your nice little 1-2 punch in the arms department.
And before we break for the bottom of the hour, let's give out one more salute to another rookie for the Chicago Cubs. His name is Michael Busch, who they picked up in the trade from the Los Angeles Dodgers. He leads the Cubs with 6 home runs, and I know he's been struggling a little bit lately, but that's what happens when you're a rookie. You're trying to adapt to a new to a new team and a new system. But he's done a heck of a job at first base so far, and he's really he's letting his actions, especially with his bat, speak louder than his words.
He's a very soft-spoken guy. If you heard his interviews, and I think he's kind of get it going. I'm sure he's going to get it back going. Of course, the defense has been pretty solid as well. That's how they won that game on Monday. So yeah, I think Busch is definitely is up there. It's probably one of the reasons why the Cubs in 1913. So Yeah, so a big matchup coming up with the Brewers this week over at Wrigley. It's actually coming up in about an hour. So we'll take a really quick break, of course. We'll talk some White Sox, much to Sid's chagrin, and the rest of MLB, including some beekeeping that was buzzworthy in Arizona over this week. And among other things, I mean, look, I had bee jokes in my head all Tuesday night, so we'll explain that in a little bit. And and a whole lot more. So we'll continue with Diamond Talk. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown, Second City Sports on Chicago. More talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver. And I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the first Friday Fun Friday edition for the month of May. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG as CK80. Once again, it's CK80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can find my Kitty McGee on the Twitter, X, and IG.
We have less than 85 minutes left for this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can always hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakita will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, back to the Diamond we go, as, of course, we go to the South Side as the Sox, well, at least guess you guys could take solace in the fact that you didn't get your butts kicked, I guess. Entertaining sweep over the Twins. There were some bright spots. Sorry, folks, I dropped something. But yeah, guys like Corey Lee, some others. Of course, Gavin Sheets had a couple of big hits. So, and Tommy Pham, of course, has he's been kind of one of the few bright spots since the Sox picked him up. So, Sid, are you a little bit encouraged by this, or what?
After that sweep last week against Tampa Bay, back to life, back to reality. Shout out Soul to Soul 1989. But I digress. But like you said, the Sox are getting better at losing ball games. I guess they're being competitive, right? But a couple of bright spots here, as you mentioned, outside of Tommy Pham and Corey Lee. Don't forget about Eric Fetty. He looked great in his last start the other day. Of course, Garrett Crochet did as well. But unfortunately, the bullpen cannot hold it for the Sox. And I think if it's not one thing, it's another. If the pitching holds up, the hitting can come around. If the hitting comes around, the starting pitching loses ground, or the bullpen comes in and just throws a complete shit show. Excuse my French. But it's despite the injuries to Yohan Makata, I know Eloy is back. Luis Robert, hopefully he'll be back in a few weeks. Despite those injuries to those key players, I will say this: the Sox were competitive this week, but they just can't get over the top. But we know that Pedro Grifol won't be the manager by the time this team gets good again. But you are encouraged by the progression of the players we just mentioned. Now they have a 3-game series on the road this weekend, starting tonight against St. Louis. And I don't know if Lance Lynn, the former White Sox pitcher, is going to pitch in this series. We'll check up on that in just a moment. But if you're a White Sox fan like yours truly, you want this team to stay competitive. You want them to play hard, and you want them to pay attention to detail. Just get back to the fundamentals of baseball, because throughout this first month of the season, we haven't seen it. We all heard the message of them playing fast and playing with defensive intensity. The defense was not there, especially with that comedy show that I saw once again on Wednesday in the series finale against the Twins. Gavin Sheets, I forgot who the other player was. They collided in the outfield. You can't get a ball. First of all, why is Gavin Sheets out there looking in right field? Why? Jimenez, I don't want to see him out there no more. We only had trouble getting Eloy off the field. Now we got to see another crap show with Gavin Sheets. Love him as a hitter, but he's not your right fielder anymore. I know Dominic Fletcher is down in Charlotte in AAA, but you can find a better replacement than Gavin Sheets in right field. I love him, but not in right field. Now we got to pull teeth to get him out off of right field. Come on.
Yeah, the silliness of it. That was definitely the old White. Oh, there's the White Sox team from this year that we know and love. The whole collision. So look, I think that it is more entertaining. Look, they're putting in an effort. You try to, you're seeing some bright spots here and there, but they're back to being exactly what they are. This is not a team that's going to end up losing. They're going to lose about 110, 15, whatever games. And I think for me, look, this is what I guess is probably what you want, I guess. Pull a little bit of an effort, and everything else. So, yeah, the Sox, as the late, great Denny Green would always say, they are who you thought they were. So, okay, you won, 3 in a row against a race team that's kind of in transition right now. You got to go against the Cardinals starting tonight, as you mentioned. So, yeah.
It's Sonny Gray against Brad Keller. For those of you that Brad Keller, his name sounds familiar. Remember about this is 2024. So I want to say about 5 years ago, Tim Anderson did a backflip for a home run, and Brad Keller got all his fee-fees. Now he's going to be pitching for us. Why?
As the Sox turns, as they say.
In the pitching matchup for tomorrow, Saturday, Eric Fetty versus former White Sox big bastard, excuse my French, Lance Lynn.
Ooh, I'm sure Lee would love to stick it to his former team. So that should be interesting.
Yes.
That'll be an interesting matchup tomorrow. And who's up for Sunday?
It's undecided for St. Louis, but Garrett Crochet will take the bump for the Sox in the series finale. So the White Sox maybe can steal a game. I would say 2, but I gotta be a realist. Probably 1. It'll probably be the one on Sunday.
All right, so we'll see how they do down there in St. Louis. Let's go to the rest of the MLB, where there were something that was buzzworthy near Phoenix on Tuesday, as the attack of I won't say killer bees, but there was a colony of bees on Tuesday night. If you guys didn't see it, near home plate at Chase Field, down there just outside of in Glendale, for the D-bats Dodgers series. And it was interesting because the game was late for like almost 2 hours. They had to actually bring in some beekeepers, and Matt Hilton, shout out to him, who's a local beekeeper down there in Arizona. He actually ended up throwing out the first pitch. He got rid of the colony and ended up throwing out the first pitch. So, congrats to him. I know he became a viral sensation. And the D-bats actually won that game, but unfortunately they ended up losing 2 out of 3 to the Dodgers, especially after getting shut out yesterday. So the Dodgers are starting to kind of get together a little bit. So I think they're starting to kind of turn. I know some people are kind of freaking out because they don't have like 30 wins right now, but they're 20-13. So if you're a Dodgers fan, you gotta be feeling good at where they're at too.
Yeah, they're getting great starting pitcher with Tyler Glass now, and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. He's starting to adjust now to the major leagues. He's starting to look good as well from the mound. But I was coming home from the job, Lakina, the other day, and I saw Arizona and Dodgers are being delayed. I was like, Arizona, they play indoors. The roof is closed, so it's not weather related. Hopefully, ain't nothing serious, regarding to human life. So it wasn't. I said, okay, it was a bunch of bees. I said, first of all, how the hell can that many bees get inside a closed indoor stadium? And for the guy who broke it up, the Diamondbacks should give him season tickets for the rest of the year or for life. I'm just saying.
I think they did. I think they gave him season tickets for the rest of the season.
Good, good.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that they did get. I think he did say they gave him season tickets. So good for Mr. Hilton there. But 2 out of 3 for the Dodgers in that series. So probably the most entertaining part of probably this week. So hilarity ensues there, and no one got stunned. And everything was all clear. So that's all that matters there. Now going to the AL East here, and the Yankees kind of had a I don't want to say a little bit of a rough week. They lose 3 out of 4 to Baltimore. And I think Baltimore's kind of show you that we're the class of the AL East right now. I know they had great pitching, they had great hitting in that series. I know Ali Rossman had had a couple of good hits, this series. I think Cedric Mullins had a couple of big hits for them in that game on I think it was on Wednesday that they won 3 out of 4. Yeah, they won 3 out of in that loss. Well, actually they broke the game open that Tuesday win for the Orioles, but unfortunately, the Yankees couldn't get going in that series.
I will say this for the Yankees: they ran into a tough buzzsaw in the Baltimore Orioles. Actually, a couple of their starting pitchers just don't have the good fortune of having good luck behind them in terms of offense. That's Nestor Cortez and Carlos Rodon. Both those guys struggled last year. We mentioned with various injuries and inconsistencies on the mound, but both of those guys have actually pitched well enough this year. Looks like Carlos Rodon is starting to turn the corner. Nestor Cortez, who was a sensation a couple of years ago, he's back on top of the Yankees offense. Just can't get any run support behind those two guys. So hopefully they'll start to turn around. As you mentioned on the other side for Baltimore, I really like their starting pitching. Corbin Burns, we talked about early in the season. Rodriguez had a good start the other night to open that series. So we talked about their offense. It's fun to watch, and I want to be next to Mr. Splash out there in left field in Oriole Park, spraying water from everybody. It looks like that's a fun place to be. Anytime your team is winning, your stadium is a fun place to be. So, but for Baltimore, after struggling a little bit to start the year, it looks like they finally turned the corner as well.
That's good. That's great to hear you on that. And that little front there with so that was actually really cool, in that series. So that's nice little vault there. Going into, let's see here. Let's go to the AL Central, and the Cleveland Guardians. They had a tough series in Houston. They lose 2 out of 3 there, but they're 2011 right now, so I'm not freaking out so much if you're a Guardians fan. They shouldn't, but a little bit, kind of a little bit of a bump there. But Houston has been playing very well lately. So it was going to be tough for them to win that series.
Yeah, we know Houston has a new manager now. Dusty Baker's retired. I know that we talked about this on our last show. The Astros are starting five rotation. At one time they were on the injury list. I know Justin Verlander made it back over a week and a half ago now, and their offense is starting to come around. So we'll see what happens there for Cleveland. They've been carried by their offense. I know that Shane Bieber is out for the year. They're starting pitcher for Cleveland, but their offense is carrying them right now. Will it hold up in the long haul? We'll see.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see here now. Going back to the AL East, and let me get this up here because it won't let me. But yeah, the Red Sox and the Giants. I mean, that series kind of ended up being there. So of course, the Giants won 2 out of 3. But the bigger story was that Dave Fleming and Will Fleming, actually it was able to, broadcast. They actually had, were guests on each other's respective stations, which was actually a really cool moment. Of course, Dave Fleming does some stuff from ESPN. I think Will does too, a few some college football and basketball as well. So that was a really nice moment that, for those two brothers to share.
Yeah, and Will Fleming was out for that White Sox TV job. Of course, it went to John Schriffen. But congrats to Mike Yastrzemski. Yes, Carl Yastrzemski's grandson, I believe. Yes, it's true, folks. And he hit a home run yesterday. He talked about it with the NBC Sports Bay Area about being relaxed. He said he had 30 tickets for his family for the entire series at Fenway Park. And he said he was more relaxed than when he played there when he was a visitor the first time a few years ago. So it was nice to hear a feel-good story, especially after a win for San Francisco, who's been struggling this year coming out the gate.
That's a confidence boost for them, getting 2 out of 3 over there, against Boston. Now, Kansas City, they took 2 out of 3 from my Royals, but I'll give
That was an inter-squad game.
Yeah, I know, right? Because there was a lot of weirdness that went on in that game, but in that series too. But yeah, Seth Lugo got his 5th win, which I think is right up there in the AL lead among pitchers. He's been really good. I think his ERA is like right up there with Shota's among all. I think he's in the top 5. So yeah, I mean the good pitching, good hit has been kind of like the key in that series for the Royals.
Yeah, you still have Salvador Perez, who the White Sox tried to get, if you believe the rumor mill. Chris Getz and everybody else, Pedro Grifol, all the former Royals are heading up north to Chicago. So too bad we can't have Bobby Witt Jr., but that's a whole nother issue. But we talked about Toronto. The offices there, they started pitching. It's kind of been up and down. And so hopefully they can even it out so both those units can be consistent. Kansas City, I don't want to throw the mud against the wall and see if it sticks, but I don't know if they can keep it up for the long haul. And it was good that they did what they did this week, but I don't know if it's going to be good enough. You still have Detroit. You still have Cleveland we talked about earlier. Can Kansas City get over one of those two teams? I don't know.
Yeah, it's really going to be tough, but they may make the Guardians earn this one in the AL Central. So we'll see what happens there. Going out west, as I can see, Sports of Chicago, like Keaton McGee, Cindy Brown with you guys. We're talking some baseball. It's kind of a surprise pleasantly that the Mariners took 2 out of 3 against the Braves down there in Atlanta. I didn't really see that coming, but look, if you're a Mariners fan like myself, look, I'll take it. If you're in the Chris Hill, there's an old name for all you White Sox fans. He actually got that lone win for the Braves, but yeah, it was really all Mariners in this series.
Yeah, you talk about the Mariners starting pitching in their bullpen, and they're kind of doing the deed right now. But you still have big name superstars. Julio Rodriguez is up there with them. So, I picked the Mariners to win the AL West over Texas. We'll see what happens there. But we know that Seattle has the offense, but can they starting pitching in their bullpen, which was a problem for them last year? Can they get their stuff together? If they can, this definitely could be one of the most dangerous teams in the American League.
And the Rangers, the defending champs, right there at their heels. They beat the Nationals 2 out of 3, including shutting them out on Wednesday. But I do want to give a shout out, and that the Nationals did win that lone game that the Nats did win. Trevor Williams and 4 relievers, they combined to they'll shut out the Rangers on Tuesday. But I do want to say that over the last 50 seasons, since 1975, there have been 21,395 scoreless outings by MLB starters, your regular postseason on Wednesday, including what happened on Wednesday. Only one of them did so while facing a bases loaded no-out jam in 2 separate occasions. Not one, but 2. And Williams actually did that and pulled that off. Got a couple of jams for a national. So a little bit of a bright spot for them there.
And also, too, on the flip side for Texas, it looks like things are starting to turn around for them, especially with their bullpen. In their last 10 games, they have a 0.57 ERA, 33 strikeouts to 6 walks, and they only given up 1 home run. That's very impressive.
There and that look, the bullpen was the reason why they were able to win all last year. So yeah, I mean, really, they're getting hot too. So yeah, big showing there. Now, unfortunately for the Angels, Mike Trout has a torn meniscus.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
So yeah, and yeah, they're not saying he'll miss the rest of the season, but it's looking that way. And yeah, just another. If they one day, it's another when it comes to Mr. Trout.
Yeah, it's been that kind of a story for him since 2021, and when you get up there in age, and you deal with various injuries. It takes you a little bit more time to come back from. Mike Trout has been the face of that franchise ever since he's made his debut some 12 years ago. I know him and Shohei Ohtani were teammates up until last year, but Mike Trout deserves better than this. I know that he's committed to sticking around with the Angels for perhaps the rest of his career, but it's just a shame for one of the top 5 best baseball players in the game to go through something like this. And you don't wish nothing on this on anybody, but Mike Trout, he definitely no one deserves it, but he's definitely a player, and a guy like him, he doesn't deserve any of this.
Just a real shame. So
yeah,
I know Rod Washington has been, Rod Washington has been getting his guys to run. That's how he actually ended up hurting himself, was because he was running, and of course he ended up tearing his meniscus. So you gotta think he's gonna get a little bit of gonna be hearing it for Angel fans. I'm sure he has the last couple of days. So yeah, tough one there. Back to the NL East, of course, we talked about the Braves, losing 2-3 to the Mariners. The Phillies, on the other hand, and of course the Mets, splitting their series with the Cubs. But probably the big story here, the Phillies actually winning. Speaking of the Angels, they win 2-3 against the Angels. Bryce Harper is starting to heat up. Their pitch has been really solid. Schwarber hit a 2-run single to broke that game open to come for that win to come back and take the series a couple of days ago. So the Phillies staying right there with the Braves in NL East.
Yeah, going back to the AL Central, the Detroit Tigers, they take 2 out of 3 from the St. Louis Cardinals. Lakina, I didn't have them in the playoffs, but I said watch out for the Tigers. Last year, they were around 500, but they didn't have enough at the trade deadline. Of course, they shipped up a couple of players that they felt like they were no longer a part of the future plans. But back to this year's team, they don't have a great offense, but they could put up some runs. But I really like their bullpen is one of the best in baseball.
Yeah, that was their bullpen is really it is going to keep them afloat and keep them kind of like right there. Maybe not in the Central, but definitely for a wild card spot is their bullpen. So yeah, that's definitely going to be a big could be a thing that keeps them in it. It all when it gets closer and closer to you're getting deeper and deeper into the season. Now going into the National League, the Central. We'll start with the Central. The Brewers take 2 out of 3. Back to the Central, I should say. They'll take the Brewers took 2 out of 3 from the Rays. Of course, they'll be facing the Cubs this weekend. The Brewers, interesting team. Like I said, I mean they've got a lot of young, stars and great pitching. So the Cubs do have a little bit of a challenge, but I do like the way they're doing so far. Can they keep it up? It's going to be a whole different story.
Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, previewing this series against the Cubs, Milwaukee, they don't have a lot of superstars, but they have a bunch of 5-tool players, and they really led about their starting pitching in their bullpen. And right now, they have it all together, at least up to this point. We'll see what happens this weekend up on the north side. But I want to focus in on the Cincinnati Reds, and they lose 2 out of 3 in San Diego earlier this week, but here's the thing about the Reds, Lakina. I know they're still a young team, but you will hope and they're still one game over 500, 16-15. But I really like Ellie De La Cruz now experiencing his first full season in the major leagues. And hopefully their starting pitch will start to turn around. Hunter Green looks like he's starting to come around a little bit, but you will hope they'll put everything together because I think this is a dangerous team when they have all parts in motion here.
Yeah, it's a tough one at Cincy. You would think they would probably be a little bit better, especially, but I think their pitching is really kind of what sort of, kind of like, we know De La Cruz and some of the other guys on there. We know about that squad, so we'll see if they can kind of get it going because they're kind of in a rough spot right now. I want to go back to the Brewers for a second. I want to give a shout out to Rod Black, who is the legendary Canadian baseball broadcaster. He's been calling baseball games for years. Shout out to Sophia Menard to Valley Sports in Milwaukee. He actually called his son Tyler's first hit an RBI during that series, the Brewers series against the Rays. So that was a really cool moment there. So it's gone viral. So if you had a chance to see, you guys check that out. But that was a really cool moment there.
Yeah, congratulations to him getting his first hit.
And of course, out west, the Padres. Speaking of the Reds, of course they did. The Padres did beat the Reds 2 out of 3, so that should definitely help them keep in pace with the Dodgers in the West. So yeah, I mean, if they can avoid not being the Padres of recent years, they could definitely perhaps maybe challenge the Dodgers in the West.
Yeah, Dylan Cease is actually doing a good job for them right now. I know he had his personal three-game winning streak snapped in his last start. But you still have Manny Machado. You still have Jackson Profar. And he'll still have some Jake Cronenworth, who's one of the best defensive infielders in the game. He's still on there. He had a big hit in their series against Cincinnati. So with Colorado stinking it up and Arizona having its issues, if you're San Diego, just play above 500 and you can get that wild card spot. They're not going to catch the Dodgers from the NL West crown. But the Padres can get one of those 3 wild card spots. That'll be a good, successful season for them.
Should be interesting to see what the Padres do. And of course, going back to the Dodgers, Walker Buehler has been cleared. So we'll be seeing him within the next few days, making his season debut, and that should definitely beef up that Dodgers starting pitching. So yeah, that'll definitely help a lot. Now going to the schedule for this weekend, of course, talk about the Cubs hosting the Brewers. That first game starts in about a half hour. Baltimore and Cincinnati, that should be a fun series. Colorado and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's kind of been lately, as I thought. I figured. The Giants and the Phillies, that should be a fun series. The first game of that series will be on Apple TV Plus, as well as the Blue Jays, who have been underachieving this year, and the Nationals. That first game will also be on Apple TV Plus. And
the former Battle of Canada.
yeah, should be interesting. They're the old Expo squad. You got the Mets and the Rays in the interleague game. You got the Tigers and the Yankees, easy for me to say, and the Angels and the Guardians.
Angels and the Guardians. That's right. And for the rest of the weekend in Major League Baseball, we'll have San Diego at Arizona. The Miami Marlins will play at Oakland. Oakland's been on a hot streak lately, so pay attention to Oakland. And also, too, we have the Mariners and Astros, the Red Sox at the Twins, the Rangers at the Royals, and the Braves and the Dodgers will do battle this weekend in La La Land. And for your Fox Saturday night baseball game of the week at 6:15 Chicago time on Fox, most of the country will get to see the New York Mets at the Tampa Bay Rays, while others will see Lakeela's Seattle Mariners battle the Houston Astros.
That should be a fun one in that Braves Dodgers series. We know those teams like playing each other, not really. And could it be a playoff preview? We'll see. And the Giants and the Phillies are your ESPN Sunday night game of the week. And because Sunday night baseball will be finding a new home, we'll let you know in a second.
Stay tuned for more sports and more fun as the second hour of Second City Sports kicks off with Julia Poe, the Chicago Bulls beat writer from the Chicago Tribune, talking Bulls and NBA playoffs following this. You're listening to Sports Zone Chicago.
No, I don't know, though. I'm scared.
Do you know that you're in my lane?
No, not at all.
Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, the Friday Fun Friday edition, the first one for the month of May. We're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X, and Kids Go Again, the IG.
If we have less than an hour left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, if you have any questions or comments for us, especially for our next guest, as we get into Chicago Bulls and NBA playoffs talk, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, you can catch Sports Zone Chicago live in the living color right now on Roku TV.
One of the things we've been doing the last few years here, Sid, of course, we got our favorites, but we want to bring in some new people, new voices, new perspectives to various things. So, of course, we got one of our new friends here with us. She is the Bulls beat writer for the Chicago Tribune. Of course, she also covers the NBA as a whole as well. She is the one, the only, the fabulous Miss Julia Poe. Julia,
Hey,
hey guys, how's it going?
We're doing great. How about yourself?
Doing good. Can't complain. There's good basketball on every night, so it's the best time of the year.
We'll keep the Bulls talk to a minimum, Julia. We promise. But just to kind of get it out the way now, of course, Arturo's kind of shows him and had his the season-ending presser and saying that he finally admitted that changes need to be made. So, do you think the Bulls will make any changes? Will Ryan sort of let him make those changes? So, what do you think is going to happen?
Definitely. I mean, I think first to kind of that latter half of your question, I don't think the Reinsdorfs have ever been the issue here. As far as we've known over the last 3 years, there's always been a general green light from ownership that what you want to do, go for it. There are expectations of what the Bulls can do to go into the luxury tax. So like you have to be gunning for an actual deep playoffs run, like top 4 in the Eastern Conference type of result to go into the luxury tax. But besides that, like they've got the green light to work. They've had the green light to work. And I think that's where that confusion comes in of like, okay, is this the year that they're actually going to go to work again? And I think the answer is definitely yes. It just depends on how you approach the Zach LaVine question. I think moving off of that contract is going to be the highlight and the focus of the summer. And the real question is just whether they're actually able to get an attractive enough deal for Arturas to feel like he can move that over the line, because there obviously has been interest in the past, but just never anything that he felt like was enough to get back in return for Zach.
Since the Bulls couldn't still, as of right now, cannot move off of Zach LaVine, how much did the Bulls actually overvalue Zach LaVine when they gave him that $200+ million contract a couple of years ago? Of course, the front office recognized that he's their guy, but how much is that coming back to bite him in the butt right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's really kind of holding them into just one position, and kind of, I think the term we've used a lot over the last year or so is it's like they're frozen like a deer in the headlights almost, with kind of having the ability to move, having any type of nimbleness around big trade deadlines and big trade windows. And I think, I don't want to necessarily say that they overvalued him, because I do think that Zach LaVine can be a max contract player on the right roster. But I think that expecting him to be, we saw that little glimpse of what that could look like before the Lonzo Ball injury, before Zach got injured that year. Everything kind of fell apart. There's no evidence that that was sustainable, but there's also not any evidence that it wasn't. So I think that version of him, you look at it and you're like, it makes sense. But I think right now it's overvalued for the Bulls specifically. I think he could still be a big impact player for another team for sure.
How different do you think this Bulls team is going to be next season?
I think it's not going to be the blow up that a lot of fans would like. I think a lot of fans would like to see, I've even heard from fans that they would like to see keep Kobe, keep Ayo, everyone else, like, let's just get this mixed up. I don't really see that being a future, because we know that they want DeMar back. We know that they like working with Vooch. We know that there are guys in this group. And I think that is kind of, again, like I said, the confusion comes in is where you have Arturas sitting down, looking us in the eye and being like, change is coming. But when you look at the roster, it's a basketball roster. There's not a lot of spots. And we know, like, okay, we know they want this guy back. We know they want this guy back. So I think that there will still be a lot of familiar faces and a decent amount of familiarity. I think the two big questions are Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, whether those two guys are on the roster at the start of next season.
We're hanging out with our new friend, Miss Julia Poe. She's the Chicago Bulls beat writer for the Chicago Tribune. She's hanging out here with us right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid McKenna here with you. Julia, of course, the other elephant in the room is head coach Billy Donovan. Of course, he's going to be back next season, but one of his assistants was let go a couple of weeks ago. I know that the incident last year with him and Zach LaVine, when Zach LaVine got benched, this was last season against the Orlando Magic. Of course, the Bulls management said there's nothing to see here. Of course, they announced, too, they had that secret extension with Mr. Donovan at some point last season. But maybe this is me reading into it too much, but with one of his assistants gone, does this mean that the Bulls have this same repeat again next year, that he's also going to be gone, despite him giving that extension?
No, I would actually say the opposite. So the way that this kind of there's been a lot of coaching rotation in terms of assistant coaching, and assistant coaching is huge in the NBA. Like, really, really defines a lot of the inner workings of a team, especially in terms of scheming, like scheming your offense, scheming your defense, like that high level scout preparation, etc. And the coach that was let go, Chris Fleming, was a holdover from the prior coach. So that was the only non-Billy Donovan selected assistant coach that was on the staff at the time. So this, if anything, is a reflection of their faith in Billy. They promoted several of his assistant coaches that he has been kind of working with and kind of building up into bigger positions. The other big kind of adjustment was Mo Cheeks moving into a different role, but that was fully Mo's decision. That was, again, just a reflection of like the point in his career that he's hitting. So no, I definitely one of the biggest consistencies that we have heard from this front office is that they love Billy Donovan. They love his work ethic. They feel like he's the guy for this moment. And I know that is not necessarily what some Bulls fans would like to hear, but he's definitely like, as long as Arturas has the same vision, it's going to be with Billy Donovan at the helm, most likely. And any of these changes are more reflection of maybe them trying to spruce up and maybe like modernize is the wrong word, but just trying to bring in some more creativity into that coaching staff so that they can maybe get some different looks and not have like some of the offensive stagnancy that they had in prior seasons.
All right, let's lighten up the mood here and talk some actual NBA playoff basketball. Of course, the Knicks finished off the Sixers. Jalen Brunson, of course, local kid, won 2 national championships, one high school championship of some years back. I mean, Tobias Harris, 0 points. He made those big shots in Game 5. What do you think about that? What do you think about that series, and what do you think about the upcoming series between the Knicks and the Pacers?
Yeah, definitely. I think, first, I think New York and Philly going at each other in a first round is like the funniest thing ever, just in terms of 2 cities going at each other. Loved watching that. Great experience. Let's do that every year. So fun. I definitely thought it's really interesting how many years in a row, Philadelphia has not been able to build the correct group around Embiid. And then in addition to that, Embiid, this year, he had the palsy going on. He had the injury. Like, I do think this is probably one of the most excusable kind of frustrating performances that he's had in the playoffs. But I think you kind of look at year after year, the situation that the Sixers are in compared to how it feels their roster should perform. And that is creating a serious question mark for me. On the flip side, I just really like how Tom Thibodeau is running that New York team. I think the way that they grow into games, I think the way that they kind of absorb runs sometimes, like they'll get run up on and they can still absorb it and recalibrate despite having some very young, very hot-headed players. And I think that is a reflection of a coaching staff that is balancing the needs and the strengths of a team. So really enjoy watching them play, even though I'm not fond of New York sports often in general, do enjoy watching that group play. And I'm curious to see how they match up with the Pacers. I thought that there have been times where it felt like Tyrese Halliburton was maybe shrinking from moments. And in that first round against Milwaukee, it did feel like he was stepping into them a little bit better. And I just think that he needs to keep building that. That's a game by game, series by series moment of him like looking at himself and being like, hey, I'm the dude. I have to go do this. And I think that they're going to be able to hang with New York if he's able to step up into that. But if he keeps having those moments where he's like, there's sometimes late in games where he's like running away from the ball. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Go to the ball, get it. Like that is your job right now. So I think it'll be interesting, but Brunson has definitely been kind of the breakout star, I feel like, in the East this year. One of several in a really good postseason.
Staying in the East, Julian, speaking of the team that the Indiana Pacers defeated last night, that's the Milwaukee Bucks. Of course, this is another quote-unquote throwaway year, more so this year than last year. Of course, Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo were both injured. Dame in the playoffs, Giannis at the end of the regular season. Of course, they bring in Doc Rivers, local kid, right before the All-Star break. Realistically, what kind of changes do you see Milwaukee doing this summer, if they can? And will we see this basically the same roster back next year?
Yeah, what a weird experiment they had this year, right? Like I was one of the people that was really excited to see the Dame Giannis pairing, and I had really high expectations for that. And on paper, I just felt like that was going to rock. And even when it was efficient, and even in those little streaks where they were figuring out how to make it work, it was never fun. At least, like, I don't know how you guys felt watching it, but I never had fun really watching that Bucks duo this year. And I think that's the biggest disappointment for me. So as a person who loves fun basketball, I would love to see Damian Lillard play some fun basketball like Toronto, like let's do that. So would definitely love to see whether that's figuring that out in Milwaukee or whether that's, you know, I mean, we already hear all of these trade rumblings about, oh, he should go here, oh, he should go there. I think my big priority is just that, like, I want him somewhere where he is being highlighted. And I mean, like, this was not a good season for him. So I just really would like to see Lillard get into a situation where either he is able to do more or where he's being put in a position to just not repeat kind of the season that he had this year. It flew under the radar, but it was a pretty inefficient season, all things considered.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go to some of these, some pivotal game sixes tonight, Julia. I'll start with the kind of like the big one here. You got the Clippers and the Mavs. Dallas just hammered the Clippers at home right before Russ's birthday. Kind of an early birthday present for Mr. Westbrook here. So, do you think the Clippers can force a game 7?
I think they can, but it feels just like an inevitability. They're like, LA's not getting out of this series. If that comes back to haunt me, fine. But Dallas is just able to drop the hammer on them every time that it matters. And again, another series where injuries are just taking so many important players out of the mix. Very frustrating. One part of that Dallas series that's so interesting to me is just seeing former Chicago Bull Derek Jones Jr., who was not even in the starting rotation last year, just flexing all the things that he can do. And I think sometimes that's just like a leap that someone can make from year to year, and sometimes that's a system thing. But, you know, we look at most improved player like conversations, and Derek on a stat sheet was never in that. I understand why he wasn't in that conversation, but man, just fun to see a guy make a leap like that. You know, it's been really entertaining to see him out there in that starting group.
And your prediction for the Cleveland-Orlando series, of course, Cleveland leads that best-of-7 series 3-2. For the record, Julia, on our NBA playoff preview show a couple of weeks ago, I picked Orlando in 7. I'm not getting good vibes from that Cleveland team. I know Donovan Mitchell and some of the other big stars were out with various injuries this year, but somehow the J.B. Bickerstaff kept that whole squad together. But they're in Orlando tonight. Last weekend, Games 3 and 4, they got blown out of the water. Is it the same script tonight, or does Cleveland find a way to finally close it out?
No, I don't think Cleveland can do it on the road. I just have not seen any evidence in that series that they can do it on the road. Orlando at home is. I used to cover sports down in Orlando. I've been in that building for like not contentious regular season games, so I can only imagine how that place is for a playoff game. I think the Magic have got that one on lock for sure.
They've been holding it for like the last decade, so I think they're kind of letting all the energy out now.
Oh yeah.
One of the Western Conference semifinals is set that will start on Sunday. Minnesota and Denver. Anthony Edwards versus Luka Doncic. Karl-Anthony Towns versus Jamal Murray. Who do you think has the edge in that series?
Yeah, I mean, first, when I talk about fun basketball, that is what I'm talking about. I need a 7-game series from that. I want every game in overtime, and I want not a single second of it. Like, I'm so excited for that one. I definitely am interested in. We heard this in the first round of just the frustration of trying to guard Jokic, and there were some pretty funny quotes out of the LA pressers of them just being like, "We're doing everything that we possibly can, and this dude is still just dropping buckets on us." And I do think that Karl-Anthony Towns and Gobert, what they can, the looks that they can give in the paint on the low post, the way that Towns can get out and actually be active on Jokic, I do think it's one of the more compelling matchups. Jokic is also just like supernatural. So, and he's built for these moments. So I do think that will be a really interesting kind of contention to see of who can get the upper hand on any given night. This is just another test for Anthony Edwards. He has so far answered the bell very well in that opening round. But this is, again, he's a young star. He's just kind of got to keep proving himself. So I'm curious to see if he can kind of keep his caliber up the way that he has in that first round. It was just wonderful to watch.
Chicago Bulls beat writer for the Chicago Tribune, Miss Julia Poe, is hanging out here with us right here on Second City Sports, the Friday edition. Sid Lakina here with you on Sports Zone Chicago. Sticking with that series, Julia, let's go to the flip side for the Denver Nuggets. You already talked about Jokic, but give us your thoughts on some of the other role players for this team, in Jamal Murray in particular, who's playing gimpy right now, and Michael Porter Jr., who the Bulls passed up in the draft a few years ago. Give us your thoughts on those role players.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Jamal Murray is someone that I would never, I would never even say role player with him. The way that he, especially in the postseason, the way that he like bolsters and is sometimes like he's not ever the true like gravity of that team because Jokic just like is who he is. But I think Anthony Edwards was the one that said like the Nuggets are good because of Murray. Like they ascend, they overcome things because of who Murray is. And I think that him continuing to be that, I mean, he has nothing to prove in terms of we saw that he could be that version of himself last season, but he has to be able to maintain that to a certain level through whatever physical issues he might be having. And I think the same is true of Michael Porter Jr. I think it's maybe a flip side where Jamal Murray's been that guy. If he's having any issues, MPJ has to be the one that kind of like steps up into that role. So I'm curious to see what that balance looks like. But if Jamal Murray is feeling good and if he's able to keep commanding that offense the way that he does, I think that's one of the things that makes that Denver team so hard to deal with is that you have Jokic as that like heavy gravity, but then you've got everyone else orbiting around him in such like a well-balanced way. It's why they're a buzzsaw when they're all healthy and firing on all cylinders.
Definitely. Let's talk about the team they beat in the first round. That's the Lakers. I don't know if you guys saw this, but less than 20 minutes ago, of course, Adrian Wojnarowski and other Sham Sharma and others are reporting it's been confirmed that Darvin Ham has been dismissed by the Lakers after two disappointing losses against the Nuggets, especially. Who do you think are you surprised by that? By this, Julia, who do you think can take that job, and will this have any reflection on whether or not LeBron stays or goes?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think I would assume that everything that LA is doing right now is with the mindset of like, we want to keep LeBron here because that's what you got to do, right? That's their front office's number one job this offseason is let's keep LeBron. LeBron was not like private about the fact that he maybe wasn't always digging what Ham was doing as a coach this year. So I think that probably is in alignment with that. I am just curious though, if I was in the Lakers front office, I would be balancing like the very real thing of we need to make LeBron happy if he's going to come back. Sure. But I'm also looking at Milwaukee and being like, we know what it looks like if a player picks a coach, right? That did not go well. And that's not even like, I don't think that's anyone's fault. I do not think that was like Griffin's fault. I don't think that was Giannis's or anyone else in the Bucks that liked that coaching hire. I don't think that was anyone's fault, but you have to weigh the fact that like players are not general managers. And so I think that would be the biggest question mark. I am curious to see how the coaching carousel kind of revolves this offseason, but I do think they've got to be wary of like, you want to keep that star happy, but you also can't let that bleed over into coaching decisions because that is just not that does not shake out very well, especially of late.
Well, you could blame LeBron James to a certain extent about a decade ago with the player empowerment when he forced his way to the Miami Heat with him, Bosh, and Wade, and that kicked out the whole era right there. Julia, let's stick to a team that's with stability in the Western Conference. They'll be playing in the second round, and that's the Oklahoma City Thunder, of course. You had Chet Holmgren, who missed his rookie year last year. Yeah, he made himself known in the first round against New Orleans. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's really come out of the woodshed this year. Even though probably Nikola Jokic is going to win MVP, I know many people, including yours, surely had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander up there as a top 3 MVP candidate. Talk to us about him and what you see for him from a distance so far.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, talk about just the West is just so packed with players that I love watching, and SGA there are just so many times where you just kind of watch him move, and the way he cuts, the way that he is able to manipulate his body, manipulate his teammates. just really impressive to watch. So I think that Thunder team, this is like a hot take. I think that Thunder team is probably top 2 most fun teams to watch in terms of the way that they play. And I voted their coach as coach of the year because I think it's impressive how he got that group delivered to this point, in my opinion, ahead of time. Like this feels a year ahead of schedule to me personally, of like how they're playing right now. So I think the big question with a young group like that always, and I feel the same way kind of about Minnesota with Ant being their central driving force, is just, okay, you're young. What happens when you get rattled? What happens if you get down a game? Like, just kind of how do you absorb that? And that's really the big questions for me with OKC. It truly is like a matter of player management and game management, and kind of like what I talked about with Orlando, having the ability to absorb things, or Indiana being able to absorb things. It's the same thing with OKC, of just being able to kind of like, when you're in that moment, take a breath and like actually get through some of those hard times, hard quarter, hard game, whatever it is, and be able to close out a series. Because I think they can basically beat any team in any one game any given night. It's just doing that 4 times is the tough bit.
We'll see what happens in the next round. They have to face either the winner of the Clippers or the Mavs. Last moment or two with Julia Poe, Bulls beat writer from the Chicago Tribune here on Second City Sports. So Sports in Chicago, Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. Last question from me, Julia. The NBA TV deal seems to be the big news this last couple of days. We know that, assuming ESPN and ABC will keep one part of the package, there's a battle between Warner Bros. Discovery and NBC. You know, they want to get back into the NBA game. You know, Amazon's going to have the third package. Where do you see things going? Or are we going to be no more NBA for TNT, as Mr. David Zaslav says? We don't need it?
Yeah, that would make me sad, personally. I think it's so interesting because it's not necessarily what they do as much of anymore, but I feel like TNT does some of the best NBA broadcast content that we have. And I understand wanting things to be streamlined into different verticals. I get that the introduction of streaming is kind of shaking things up. But man, that TNT desk, the talent that they have on their side, I just really appreciate the way that they approach games, and feel like that quality has always been high. And I don't know, especially in a year where a lot of, like, at least for my childhood, like a lot of our top NBA stars are starting to kind of, you know, you have the whole no LeBron, no Steph, no KD in the playoffs. The idea of like then losing TNT on top of that era going out is just like, man, oh my, like where are we going? What are we doing right now? So I'm interested in it. I'm also interested to see what kind of bidding war would come out of that, because I know that like Ernie Johnson has said that he's not going to leave TNT, but if I just am so curious how much money people would be willing to throw at some of that talent to try to get them to come over if they do end up switching. So interesting to watch. Feels like my childhood is like ending again somehow with some of this stuff, but that would just be nuts if it did move away from that.
And I'll speak for myself, and of course, I'll probably speak for Lakina as well. When the original NBA on NBC went away following the 2002 NBA Finals, of course, you know, watching Michael Jordan, the Bulls every week and winning those championships, it was like an event. So we kind of feel your pain, like we did when NBC lost it in 2002 at the Lakers 3-peat with Shaq and the late Kobe Bryant. Last question from me, Julia. You can follow Julie on the Twitter X at Julia Poe. That's BY and then Julia Poe. On your Twitter X feed, you have your tweet pinned to the top of your page of the story that you did on Kobe White when you first got here, and his relationship with his father. Talk to us about that. What did you learn about Mr. Kobe White? Not the basketball player, but him as a person.
Oh man, yeah, that was the highlight of the season for me. Spent about 4 months working with Kobe and his family and teammates, coaches, and just kind of opening up that story and digging into that. Kobe was incredibly close with his father growing up. His father passed away of cancer in a really traumatic, difficult way when he was in high school. And he just had a really relatable, I think, especially for young men, for young Black men. Very relatable experience of being like, I need to take care of my mom, I need to take care of my family, and I do not have time to take care of myself. And we just kind of talked through how he kept doing that until he hit a wall in the pandemic, and then the way that he was able to open up his own mental health, his own relationship with God, his relationship with his family, and ultimately become a better basketball player, better brother, better son, better teammate because of it. And just that kind of thing is always meaningful, especially for, Kobe and I, different people, different backgrounds. You don't get to know people that well being in the locker room. And I just appreciated him being so willing to talk about that and also to be open about an issue I think that like a lot of people can really relate to, but especially like young Black men definitely can relate to. So really appreciated that. And if you guys get the chance to check out the story, I think it is just something that even if you haven't lost a parent, it's just like really relatable going through that level of a hard thing and kind of getting through it. It was cool to see kind of how that reflected his rise this season as well, because we started working on that before he even was like being talked about in most improved player conversations. So it was cool as I was getting to know that about him, seeing him take off on the court. It was just like a really nice balance.
Yeah, definitely. You guys can definitely check that out on her Twitter. It's pinned, like Sis says, pinned right there by Julia Poe on her Twitter account. Julia, thank you so much for joining us. It has been so much fun, and we'll put you on the spot for NBA Finals. But we're looking forward to kind of like this upcoming off season for the Bulls.
Definitely. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I really, really love doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. So so you can follow Julia at by Julia Poe, and of course you can catch that great article she did with Kobe White. It's all right there. So I think did we cover everything, Julia? Or anything else you want to plug?
I think so. Yeah, definitely. Just also follow our coverage of the Chicago Sky this summer. Angel Reese, Camila Cardoso are in town, and it's going to be a really, really fun summer of women's hoops in the city of Chicago. So y'all definitely check out the Tribune's coverage of that this summer. We'll have a lot of fun stuff there.
All right, much continued success, Ms. Poe. Thank you so much for joining us here today, making your debut on Second City Sports. And we definitely will have you back over the summer. We know USA basketball for the men's and the women over in Paris should be exciting as well. So hopefully we can get you on during that time later this summer. Of course, as Lakina said, the Bulls will make some news one way or the other. So and when that happens, we would like for you to come back and join us again.
For sure. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Much continued success.
A lot of fun covering Angel. So I'm going to go on all of them. So I think you're going to have a lot of fun. Thank you, Julia.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks. All right, so let's finish up here real quick. I know we're up against it, but let's do the scheduling real quick. I think we already covered a little bit with Julia. Tonight you got the doubleheader on ESPN, both pivotal game 6s. Could be some clinchers here. Cleveland will try to clinch on the road. I know they've had a tough time after the last couple of times being blown out at 6:00 on ESPN. We'll see if the Mavs can close out the Clippers on ESPN. That second half of that doubleheader at 8:30. Hopefully the Clippers actually show up this time. We'll see.
Yeah. Of course, Saturday, tomorrow, Nuggets and Timberwolves game 1 of the second round series, and that'll be on TNT at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And for Sunday, this schedule can change. So, as we say in the business, check your local listings. The ABC doubleheader will look like this: Orlando and Cleveland game 7, if necessary, at high noon, followed by Mavericks and Clippers game 7 from LA, if necessary, at 2:30. So, as we say in the business, check your local listings.
All right, we're going to take a really quick break. Of course, we'll do that hockey as the playoffs are. We got a game 7 coming up this weekend, Sid. And of course, some more sports media news involving NFL Network and a whole lot more. And so much more to talk about, too. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown, Second City Sports, on Sports of Chicago. Hodgepodge fun. More fun on Friday. It's easy for me to say.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks? They can be a real lifesaver. And I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on this hashtag Friday Fun Friday edition of the first one for the month of May. We're live in the living color right here in Sports Zone, Chicago. You can follow yours truly, City Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Kingdom McGee on the Twitter, X, and Kingdom McGee on IG.
This is our last break of the show for today and for the week. So if you have any last minute questions or comments, you can always hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments to the comments section. Lakino, get them up on the screen for you.
All right, Sid, let's do that hockey as we actually got a couple of we got a pivotal game 6 coming up, a couple of very pivotal games, and including also game 7 as well. They'll be coming up down the pike. Now, of course, the Rangers and the Canes, the Hurricanes took care of business. Unfortunately, though, let me see if I can get this up here on for Friday's matchup we got coming up. Both, like I said, the Preds and Canucks. The Preds cut into that 3-1 lead against the Canucks. We'll see if they can get it going, and perhaps maybe Vancouver can finish us off on the road tonight.
Yeah, as we talked about, the Canucks are one of the best young squads in the NHL. They had a nice regular season. They've been the better team, in my opinion, in this series. It's almost like parallel to what the New York Knicks did the other night, going back to the NBA playoffs in Game 5. You were up 6. You let it get away. You lose that game in overtime, but come back to win the next game like the Knicks did last night. I get that same vibe for the Vancouver Canucks here. We know in the Stanley Cup playoffs, most of these matchups, the teams are evenly matched. It's just who does the little things down the stretch. I think Vancouver have learned their lesson from the last game. I think it's going to be tough down there in Nashville. We know how their crowd rocks out there in Nationwide Arena. So, Bridgestone Arena, I should say. So, I'm giving a slight edge to the Vancouver Canucks. If they don't get it done tonight, I know they have Game 7 in their back pocket back at home, but Game 7 doesn't guarantee you a win in hockey, unlike the NBA.
That'll be the first game that TNT doubleheader tonight. The second game will be Stars and Vegas. We'll see if Dallas still, of course, Vegas kind of set 3-1 lead as well. So we'll see if the Stars can, close it out down in Vegas tonight.
The road teams have dominated this series through the first 4 games, and all of a sudden, the Stars decided to start winning now the last 3 games. So, for Vegas, I know they were in the Cup final last year. They're the defending Stanley Cup champs, but I think that Dallas has confidence that they won their previous 2 trips out there in Vegas last weekend. I think that momentum is going to carry over here tonight. I really like watching that Vegas team, but Dallas, especially with Jason Robinson, their leading scorer, he's going to step up tonight. I think Dallas, this is the time for them to close it out. They have the momentum. I think they sense the kill here, so I'm going with Dallas.
Could go to multiple overtimes here in this game. So yeah, Dallas might be winners, but hopefully they can close it out. Now we have a Game 7 tomorrow night. We talked about it right before we started airing. This will be on ABC. So very smart move by ABC, putting this game in prime time on their network. The Maple Leafs and the Bruins should be a lot of fun. And there's no way Boston can lose in the first round again, or will they?
Joseph Wall, the goalie for Toronto, had a big performance last night with 22 saves. We all know with these 2 original 6 rivals that they had a bunch of matchups throughout the years in the playoffs. But as far as this series this year, Boston had a slight edge coming in, but Toronto has fought back these last couple of games, keeping their season alive. So this will be a classic Game 7 matchup in the TD Bank North Garden tomorrow night. I cannot wait for this. Lakeem, I've been thinking about this for the last almost now 24 hours. Remember, especially for you Blackhawks fans, I know you better remember this. Remember, this is 2024. Remember back 11 years ago, this almost the same scenario. Game 7, 2013, first round, Toronto at Boston. Remember, Toronto was up, I believe, 5-1.
Yep.
And then the Boston Bruins tied it up late. They scored the game winner in overtime. And, of course, they went on to the Stanley Cup final before bowing out to the Blackhawks 6-6 game. So, obviously, our Blackhawks are not in the playoffs this year. But I don't know. Toronto is going to give up this version of the Toronto Maple Leafs will have a 5-1 lead, let alone blow a 5-1 lead. But it's the same scenario in the sense. And hopefully we get another classic game tomorrow. And I don't think whoever gets up 5-1 is going to blow it. But I can see definitely a 4-2, 3-2 game. Kind of what we saw last night with the Maple Leafs winning 2-1.
Gonna be interesting to see which goalie steps up in that game, because you know that TD Garden's gonna be rocking. So as the Celtics are patiently waiting for their next opponent, so we'll see what happens. Should be a fun matchup here. Now on Sunday, the first game of this series, this is the second round. It will be to be determined, depending on what tonight's games show. The Game 6 is. But it should be a great series here. I wish they were facing each other in the Eastern Conference Finals, but whatever. Carolina and the Rangers. So, I think for me, it's really going to be about the goaltending, I think, because it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, you got, Terry Panarin versus Sebastian Aho, and it's really going to come down to, who can kind of, stand on their heads and everything else. And it's going to get kind of it's really going to, I think you got like I said, the goaltending is going to be an issue. We'll see the battle between those two. Who's going to get the edge there. But it's also going to be the supporting cast that's going to be. And you know how I feel about Panarin. I wish he was still a Blackhawk, but again, it's a whole different conversation. But yeah, it'll definitely be the supporting cast. Like I said, the goaltender is really good as gonna kind of determine this series, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Sam Bowman, for that, but I digress. But also, too, these are two physical teams. We know Carolina likes to get down dirty and gritty, and we all know they don't have the superstars, big name superstars that'll be put up on billboards, but they play together as a team. Don't forget about Teuvo Teravainen, too, but I digress. But also, to look out for the special teams, especially on the power play, with both these teams being physical as they are. Whoever takes advantage with the man advantage, I think is going to win this series. I'm gonna step out and go with the Rangers, Lakina, because of the goaltending. But I think this series, I can't guarantee you this. It will go to full 7. I'll be disappointed it doesn't go to full 7.
It would be a shame if it doesn't go a full 7. Are you kidding?
Exactly.
It'd be a total shame if we don't get 7 games out of this. I'm going up to Toronto and make myself known to Mr. Bedman and yeah, but I digress. But like I said, I think like you said, I think outside of Aho and Panarin, I think it's really going to depend on the supporting cast. The goaltending, we'll see. I know Kucherev has had some good games this year. I know Shatterskin have had some great games this year as well, but both can kind of have their bad games too. So if they can avoid that, it's really going to depend on the edge. So the Raiders have the edge because they got better goaltending, but I think the Canes can kind of cut into that. And we know Rob Brindamore loves the physicality. He was kind of a Bruin, back in the day. So I can definitely see.
We know he was a player.
Exactly. So yeah, it's gonna. This should be a very entertaining series. Like I said, I would be very disappointed if it doesn't go 7.
Same here.
All right. Yeah, that's the schedule for this week. I think everyone else is kind of waiting on how the other games go, so we don't really know what's gonna. It's kind of weird how the schedule kind of maps out in the NHL. But I digress.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Chicago City. Lakina hanging out here with you to wrap up the week before we send you guys off into your weekend. Lakina, I want to go back to basketball for a minute, and we talked about this with Julia Poe from the Chicago Tribune regarding the Los Angeles Lakers. Of course, now the names are going to be speculated. I'm sure they're starting already. Of course, Tyronn Lue, the current head coach of the Clippers, so he has 1 year left in his contract for next year. Of course, JJ Redick from ESPN. He was interviewed by the Charlotte Hornets, I think, about a week or two ago. Of course, his name is going to be floated out there. I don't know who else wants to coach this team, but Lakina, do you have any ideas who, quote unquote, LeBron James wants to coach the Lakers team? Because let's be honest here, I think you're going to have 2, perhaps maybe 3 years left of LeBron, and that's it.
Yeah, it's
going
to
be a coach for the next 2 or 3 years to help LeBron James toward the end of his career.
Yeah, remember he's going to be turning 40 at the end of the year, near the end of the year. So, like you said, he may have maybe 2, 3 at most years left. So I can't really think of any names out there. I mean, do perhaps maybe get Adrian Griffin to kind of come in? I know. Look, you don't have to pay him a lot because the Bucks are still paying them. So that's they're maybe being flown around as well. I don't know who else is out there that maybe LeBron would want. I'm looking through some of the other ones. I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see how Rob Pelinka kind of approaches this. It's gonna be interesting. Well, how much will LeBron have a say? Because you don't know. You don't even know if he's gonna come back next year to the Lakers. So it's gonna be kind of like pleasing LeBron and fit this team. And this team doesn't have a lot of cap money, so you're not gonna be able to add anything unless you subtract some guys.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in a tough spot for Lakers, but we'll see. This is Rob Pelinka's first rodeo, so we'll see if we can figure it out.
Yeah, here's another name that's going to be thrown out there. We'll throw it out here. Mike Budenholzer. I think the Milwaukee Bucks, if you got them away from everything, we shouldn't have fired them after the disappointing loss in the first round to the Miami Heat last year, despite Giannis being injured.
Do you think will LeBron listen to Budenholzer though? That's going to be the question. And we saw what happened. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of interesting names being thrown around, but I don't know.
Here's another one, and kind of the way he got dismissed was earth-shattering at the time. Terry Stotts.
Okay, Stotts, I'll give you that. I think, even though I think Charles Billups did do a great job up there in Portland, but yeah, I think Stotts kind of got the raw deal there, especially once Dame said he wanted to leave. I can kind of see LeBron maybe perhaps wanting for him to coach him. So, like I said, how much let's say will LeBron have? That's really going to be the big question here.
Yeah, he's going to have a lot to say, and you know that the rumors out there that the Lakers may want to draft his son to appease LeBron James as well. So we had to see what that entails. But just one more name that is going to be thrown out there. I don't think he has a real chance for this job, but Kenny Atkinson. I know he got the boot at Brooklyn once KD and Kyrie Irving both joined the team following the 2019 season. And of course, they got Steve Nash. We saw what happened at the injuries and COVID and all the other foolishness. But Kenny Atkinson, do you think he has a realistic shot at this job?
I don't think so. But again, you never know. So yeah, I mean, a lot of weird things going to be happening over there in with the Lakers. So yeah, to be continued, as we say. We'll keep you guys updated.
The hourglass is now turning.
Yes, exactly. Where's the music at when we need that? This is Legacy Sports on Sports Social. Got Lakita McGee sitting around with you, and so we still got even more time, Sid. But yeah, of course, the sports media news. Well, let's get to that. Of course, the NFL Network has finished up their layoffs. One of the names that apparently has been let go is Hall of Famer Michael Irvin. Tell us about it.
Of course, this is a tough part of the business that no one likes, but it's a reality of life. Of course, Michael Irvin got caught up in some unfortunate events during last year's Super Bowl. Of course, he was cleared of all wrongdoing. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, as Lakina said, Google is your friend. This was before last year's Philadelphia Kansas City Super Bowl. He was left off the NFL Network coverage. He was brought back this year prior to the start of the season, but now he's no longer going to be part of the NFL Network. And now he's still a guest panelist on the FS1 show Undisputed with Skip Bayless. He's part of a rotating panel with him, Keyshawn Johnson, Rachel Nichols, Paul Pierce, The Truth, and Richard Sherman, who's been off their program for the last few weeks due to his personal issues, but he's supposed to make his return to that program very soon. So, ladies, Michael Irvin, you'll see him probably more now on Undisputed since he has the NFL Network is no longer his backing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And, OBJ making some news due to NFL here. He has signed with the Dolphins. So, well, I guess you could say it's another target for Tua to throw to, but he is aging. So I don't know how much of an impact he'll have, but I guess maybe.
He's their third or fourth. Excuse me. He's their third or fourth wide receiver at best. Of course, you still have Jalen Waddle there, who had a nice year last year. Of course, Tyreek Hill. If he didn't get hurt toward the end of that season, he was my MVP. Of course, he's the number one target there. Of course, it's all about paying Tua Tagovailoa at the end of the day for the Dolphins. So it's just another added weapon, and OBJ is going to be a supporting cast. He's not going to be the number one guy anymore. I think he accepts that, and other people should too. So. We'll see what happens. Just another weapon for Tua.
Yeah, so I'll be interested to see what he does there. Go back to even more sports media news. We talked about this with our new buddy Julia Poe from the Trib. Apparently, I guess no one really knows for sure, but I guess NBC is reportedly offered to $2.5 billion for the rights fees for the NBA, which would be after not this season, but after next season, and which is twice what Warner Bros. Discovery is paying now. And it'll be interesting to see what Warner Brothers does. I know I heard Bill Simmons say in his podcast that I don't think they're going to match it, but I think if you're Warner Bros. Discovery, you're trying to you're going to be doing a new streaming service with Fox and Disney. You really aren't going to be able to sell it without your top sports, the NBA. We know the rumors, of course. We talked about it with Julia that Uri John's already said that he's still but everyone else, Shaq and Kenny and Charles, they all have outs in their. Charles said in the podcast that. They all have outs in their contract. So if they do decide to leave, but what do you think is going to happen? I think they're going to figure it out. They're going to have to. I think they may have to join in this whole thing. I'm talking about NBC and WBD, because if you're WBD, you don't want to. If you're a shareholder, you don't want to lose the NBA. You just don't.
For those of you that are scoring at home, WBD means Warner Brothers Discovery. Me personally, I wish NBC would get the entirety of that package, because it's not just the nostalgia that we talked about in our last break with Julia, watching Michael and Shaq and Kobe in the 90s and the early 2000s when NBC had the broadcasting rights over the air for the NBA. Of course, Turner still had it then. They still have it now for cable. And they're sharing it with ESPN now. But look at what the opportunities will open up, Lakina, if NBC were to win those rights from WBD. I know you said Ernie Johnson wouldn't leave, but I think for the right price, he would leave. Inside the NBA is the best, my personal opinion, the best post-game show on sports post-game show on television. You can't tell me that NBC wouldn't want to bring over Shaq, Kenny, and Charles over to NBC if they can get the package, and or Draymond Green whenever he decides to hang it up. And so and you can get new blood in there, of course. I think Noah Eagle will be the number one play-by-play man if he decides to stay at NBC. And let's not forget, you can bring over some new talent, other new talent as well, i.e. Jalen Rose, if he still wants to continue to do sports television. Just saying.
Well, yeah, and also, too, I know some people saying maybe Kevin Harlan might be the number one guy coming in. But remember, I think, guys like, Kevin Harlan, Ian Eagle, our buddy Spiro Diaz, who we've interviewed many times, they have contracts with CBS. So I don't know if CBS will let them, do NBA on NBC. Should it? Because it works with Turner because they're a cable entity. Yeah. So I don't know if they're gonna want them to. They may have to choose, and you have a better deal with CBS because you're also doing NFL and men's college hoops. So a lot to decide here. So hopefully they'll figure it out. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. And speaking of the NFL, Lakina, I'll read the headline. I want to hear your thoughts. Fewer Monday Night Football games will be simulcasted on ABC. And, last year it was up because of the writer's strike. Now things are going back to normal this coming fall as far as we know. So, me personally, it kind of stinks, but I understand why.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically a filler when they did last year. Mm-hmm. But I kind of feel like if you look at the ratings, that the ratings were actually pretty good for those Monday night games on ABC. And of course, we'll talk about them on Old School TV Monday in the future, but that series. But I mean, it kind of benefited that. So I'm a little like, I don't know if y'all want to do that, but I understand why that they would do it. But that was really one of the big things that kept ABC afloat during that whole writer strike and actor strike. So you said you're right. It stinks, but I get it. It's the nature of the business, but that was one of the reasons why they did away. ABC did away with. I think it was like 07 or 08 that they did away with Monday Night Football. But that kind of kept y'all afloat too. So we'll see if they change their mind. They actually remember they were only going to do it a few games, but they ended up doing the whole season. So we'll see if they really do that. But yeah.
I was trying to find some information on this story as we transition over to college football a little bit, Lakina. If you don't know anything less than I do, you can admit it. But what's going on with Deion Sanders getting into it with some college football players over X? I thought he was above this. Maybe I was reading it wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd heard about it. I mean, from what I can tell, I think because a lot of players left the transfer portal. I think one of their top players from last year was saying things about. I don't know I forgot the player's name because I kind of just browsed through it. But apparently, I guess he was talking about that. Oh well, Coach Prime wasn't really about developing players or even young men, and blah blah blah, et cetera, et cetera. So. That kind of how it all started there. And of course, he kind of got into it with, Prime got into it with some, and not just him, but other players as well. But I think it kind of like, this is not how you want to grow your program. You're going to be going to Colorado's going to be going back to the Big 12 next year. So you're going to be up against, teams like Oklahoma State and Kansas, who are who's upstart school. They have BYU and Cincy, and they're no pushovers, and Houston too. So you got bigger issues to worry about than getting into it with some foreign players. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I know he had a camera crew in there last year. I'm talking about Coach Prime documenting that first season, his first season as Colorado Buffalo's head coach. I know there's going to be, as you mentioned, expectations this year to make that jump from 4 wins to perhaps 6 or 7 to get them into a bowl game. Are they a national championship worthy? Of course not. But if he has better players and Travis Hunter can stay healthy, I think they can improve. But we'll see what happens. Shedeur Sanders, he's going to be one of the favorites for the Heisman next year. Hopefully, Deion Sanders has an offensive line because remember, as we watched from the middle of last year all the way down to the end, the offensive line got worse, and plus, Colorado did not have a consistent running game.
No, they didn't. So we'll see what they do because they're going to be going against a team that's not going against in the conference. That's not afraid to play defense in recent years, especially with their new additions. So we'll see what happens there. There was some more I wanted to talk to you about. John Schriffen not making a lot of friends with White Sox fans. I guess he misspelled mispronounced Bill Vex game during the that Wednesday game against the Twins. Okay, and there was a lot of they went bananas, and it's just like, come on, kids, really? I mean, okay, like I'm sure there have been a lot of White Sox fans that have. I know that whole thing with him, the haters and everything else. I think he's trying to find some footing. And I guess White Sox fans need something to do because their team isn't very good. So what do you think, Sid?
Yeah, I think that's what that is. Of course, you're mad at the way the whole Jason Benetti situation went down. I get it. Don't get mad at John. Get mad at Reinsdorf and Brooks Boyer for that. And like I said, we knew that John Schriffen is going to have a transitional period because remember, this is his first TV job calling baseball games. He's never called a baseball game before. I know he's done college football and basketball, but he's never done a professional baseball game. So he's still trying to find his footing. He's still going to try to find the silver lining. It was been a horrendous start to the season so far for the White Sox. But as we say all the time, social media in general, just take it with a grain of salt. Does it represent everybody? No. But can you have some wackos out there? Absolutely.
Yes, like I said, the Sox have bigger problems in how you pronounce Bill Vex's name, but I digress. Exactly. A couple more things I guess I know we're up. So we got a little bit of time, but shoot, I just lost what I was going to say. Sunday Night Baseball might be finding a new home over at Amazon. This report came out from Andrew Marchand from The Athletic. He's been very busy. He's had a very busy week. So what do you think? Perhaps because remember, ESPN can opt out of their TV contract with MLB. So
what year can they do that? Is it after next year or do you know?
I think I'm not sure, but I think from what I just kind of I think it's after next year. I think I'm not sure, but I think they can opt out. No, I think it's right. Like after this year, they can opt out. I think I'll double check.
Okay, but remember, ESPN used to be the home of Major League Baseball until MLB Network took over some 15 years ago here in the United States. But shout out to the folks at Amazon. You have Thursday Night Football. You're going to get an NBA package after next season. They're not involved in hockey. I'm sure they'll do that at some point. But you get Sunday Night Baseball exclusive streaming. A lot of people subscribe to Amazon Prime for the other programming and for shopping and all that stuff, unlike yours truly. But I digress. But if they get Sunday Night Baseball, hey, you get more people to attract to your streaming service. Look what Apple TV Plus is doing with Friday Night Baseball. Despite some criticism on how they have a couple of games running simultaneously every week.
Yeah, like it's still in the early stages, but for Sunday morning baseball, Roku might be the new home for streaming for the Sunday morning
TV.
Yeah, how fitting. So the Roku might be a new home for Sunday morning baseball.
Yeah, because remember, Peacock did it for the last 2 years. They're not doing it this year. So, what a concept. You can watch us on Sports Zone Chicago. They watch Sunday brunch baseball. What a life.
Wasn't that funny how all that kind of works? And we've been saying, people need options. So I'm a little, I guess they want to, MLB's their credit. They want to go streaming route. Of course, Amazon with the deals with with the MLB and now with the NBA and NHL, well NFL now especially. So I mean, Yeah, interesting. So, yeah, it should be interesting to see how this plays out if they do end up getting, becoming a new home. We'll see. I think later this season, I think they would do it. So, yeah, I mean, if you get the Roku TV app, I mean, look, after you show repeats of our show, we can watch a little bit of baseball as well.
Yeah, King, nothing wrong with that. Before we begin, Lakina, I know we're starting to run up against it now, but congratulations to Mike Gorman, the Hall of Fame announcer for the Boston Celtics for TV. He's been calling games for the Celtics since 1980. He broadcasted games featuring Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, Antoine Walker, Paul Pierce, of course, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, of course, this new bunch right now with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and some of the other great Boston Celtic greats that he's called games for over the years. 40 plus years in the business. Of course, the last game was the other night with the Boston Celtics eliminating the Miami Heat in 5 games. Of course, NBC Sports Boston did a great tribute to Mr. Gorman. Of course, his longtime partner was Tommy Heinze, who passed away a couple years ago. He's been working with Brian Scalabrine for the last few years. So, job well done, Mr. Gorman, and good luck with your retirement.
Yeah, he's definitely earned it. He's called championship. He's called conference finals, and also he was some weirdness going on back to the old Boston Garden, and I think he did some of Tommy Heitz's games those last few years of his career there. So, yeah, a great career to deserve it. That was a really. I saw the trivia. If you guys didn't see it, go to the YouTube, go to NBC Sports Boston's YouTube channel.
Yes.
It's all right there.
Yes. Quick thought or two, Lakina. Some folks are upset that J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, was not there at the Chicago Bears press conference last week that was held near Soldier Field as the Bears unveiled their plans for a rendering of their potential new stadium. As we said before, J.B. Pritzker, I know politicians, most of them are liars, but I will say this, Governor Pritzker here in Illinois has kept his word. That money is for the taxpayers' money. It's not going to be spent on new stadiums. So far, he's kept his word. It's now everybody thinks it's a done deal that the Bears will be staying downtown. Like I said, I think Arlington Heights will be the new eventual place. It's better for them business-wise anyway, before the Bears could control their own economy. But I digress. But what are your thoughts on this? For the Bears to even get that approved, they may, like you said, we may have to put it to a vote. If that's the case, I think they're going to get a rude awakening.
Look what happened to the Chiefs. Just saying, about a couple weeks ago, and they've got 3 Super Bowls in the last 5 years.
Right.
People there told them, no, you're not building a new stadium in our city. Heck, I think it was like a 2/3 margin or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, look, Governor Pritzker is a businessman. If you saw that presser, I wouldn't have won either. I mean, you had a pastor there. What? Then you had the mayor, who isn't very well liked by a lot of folks here. I'm just saying, I'm not going to go political here, but for other reasons. But yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I mean, look, the people downstate don't really care about the Bears, so it's not like, yeah, he's kind of speaking for a lot of people. So I think he and Kevin Warren, of course, who's the team president for the Bears, they may have to do a little bit of. He's got to do some. Mr. Warren's got to do some wheeling and dealing to convince Governor Pritzker. Like I said, he too is a businessman. He's a self-made multimillionaire, so I think he kind of knows what will not work. So yeah, they're gonna have to do something. They want to, because I know Mr. Warren wants to stay here in the city, so he's gonna have to be creative and do something. It's not going to be easy. He was able to do it in Minnesota, but here in Illinois, it's Chicago and downstate politics. It's a whole different animal.
Exactly. In a history lesson, especially for our younger viewers and listeners, the term "Windy City" does it fit the narrative during the wintertime? Yes, but the original term comes from its politics. The feeling in the positions change from 1 minute to the next. The hourglass, as you say, it will continue.
Nicely done. Well played there. I'm glad you had your water bottle closed. Yeah. Don't want to spill stuff on your computer, but also too, the Kentucky Derby will commence down in Churchill Downs this Saturday. The favorites are Sierra Leone, 3-1 favorite, and Catchy Freedom at 8-1, I should say. So some various things happening there. So yeah, you can check that out. That'll be on NBC for like the 15th straight year they've done it. So you can catch that at 5:22, I think. The Kentucky Derby on NBC.
We'll have to do a show on this down the road, Lakeem, perhaps later this summer. What's just some sporting events that you want to attend, but you never really gotten into? I think that the Kentucky Derby for me. I'm not really a dress-up guy unless it's important, like a job or something like that.
I'm not either, so I don't feel bad.
I would like to go there just for one time in my life. Just one time in my life.
Yeah, it is the Triple Crown races. I go to all three. I know the Belmont. I know some people say that's pretty cool. Even the Breeders' Cup, which it's not a Triple Crown race. It's kind of like it's in November, right in the middle of football season, but it's a great time as well. So yeah, we should do a show like that at some point over the summer. So that'll be fun. We should have a panel for it too. So we can
good idea. See, folks, we have some good ideas, and we should put into motion. So we'll look out for that very soon. I'll just leave it at that. Manifesting.
Yeah, exactly. That's what the kids say. Manifesting stuff. So that's it. You can follow my Keaton McGee on the Twitter, X, and Keaton Screaming, and the IG.
While you're manifesting, you can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are located at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including that iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, exclusively on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
And of course, you can catch Sports Zone Chicago. Speaking of Roku, if they do end up, streaming baseball games on Sunday mornings over the summer, before you do that, you can go to Roku TV to catch replays of all our shows. Our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellows, What's Up, Cuz, is all right there for you. Just type in Sports Zone Chicago, wherever device that you use on your Roku TV app. It's all right there for you.
And we will provide.
And once again, we also want to thank our new friend, Chicago Tribune Bulls beat writer, Julia Poe, here on Second City Sports, of course, by Julia Poe. You can catch all her work right there, especially that great interview she did with Kobe White over the season.
Yes. And so I'm ready to enjoy a Game 7 in hockey between Toronto and Boston. NBA playoffs continuing through the weekend. The second round, at least in the Western Conference, starts tomorrow with Minnesota and Denver. Plus, we have some baseball action this weekend.
So enjoy all that action, too. Of course, also Kentucky Derby as well. So for Sid, I'm the Kansas Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. Stay safe, everybody, and we'll see you Monday.
Holla!